I've just read the most fascinating piece of literature. Gosh, you never stop reading, do you? How could I? There's so many books out there. I mean, you read more than you eat, and that's saying something. Oh, if I could gain sustenance from the pounds of books that I read. All right. Well, anyway, tell me what's this fascinating piece of literature that you just read? It's a fascinating bit of philosophy. Oh, okay. So sorry, fascinating bit of philosophy. So what do you got? It was from a 1920s philosopher from India, and he was giving his estimation of another meaning for the Genesis. Another meaning of Genesis. Okay, well, no, this sounds great. Go for it. Right, he was explaining that the Garden of Paradise is perhaps a story about what goes on inside all of our minds. Okay, explain. Right. Well, he says, our minds are often, trifurcated into three components, right? We have our emotional aspect, our rational aspect, and our spiritual component. And, these are the three voices that we always hear, going on in our minds. Okay, emotionality, rationality, and spirituality. Yeah, I get that. That makes sense. Right, and so he says, we all have an Eve, an Adam, and a God inside us, and these are our three voices. We have our emotionality is Eve, and our rationality is Adam, and our spirituality is God. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Right, and so within this Garden of Paradise, there is but one single rule to maintain this harmony between the three voices in our heads. Right, the regarding the tree of knowledge of good and evil, right? Yes, it's spot on. Right, and so the single rule is that, only our spiritual component, is allowed to eat of this fruit of knowledge of good and evil. That our hearts are ill-equipped to know the difference between good and evil, and our rationality as well can be deceived on what is good and evil. Yeah, that's making sense. Right, and so we're all very familiar with the process of falling from this harmony, as our hearts want to believe that they know what is right and wrong, and then they bring this supposed knowledge back to our rationality, and start convincing it to follow the whims of the heart, and in doing so, we fall from harmony with our spiritual component. And this is exactly as, Eve goes to the tree, and takes of this fruit, and then brings it back, to Adam, and they both fall in separation. Right, yeah, no, this is very interesting. Right, and then so we understand that only our spirits are capable of knowing the difference between good and evil, and despite the good intentions and strong feelings of our hearts, they can be deceived, and of course our rationality can quite be deceived as well. Wow, that's some really great philosophy. This is and further, this philosopher from the 20s, he identifies the problem as well is the snake, within the tree that comes to us, and he calls it the ahamkara, an Indian term for the eye maker within the mind, that which creates this feeling of separation and individuality, that we somehow stand alone and that we can stand alone from the whole of the creation. Okay, yeah, the eye maker. Right, and so it is precisely this snake that creeps into our minds and thinks, oh, you surely will not die. You'll just live separate from the rest of all of this creation, which of course is, absolutely impossible. With every breath, you have to be integrated into the cosmos. And so we find that the whole process is precisely that we have this snake in our minds that convinces us of an individuality that can stand separate from all else, and tells us, follow your heart and decide that knows the difference. Our rationality falls quite with it, and then we become separated from our spiritual selves. And in that moment of separation, once you're separated from your spiritual self, you might as well call that death.